Okay, we're recording.
Perfect. So, Elizabeth, do you want to be our group leader, being you originated the video?
So basically, we just need to go through all the questions and kind of come up with our writing statement, and then put the definitions of the family in order, right?
I think so.
Okay. So I'll start out with the first question, and then we can just talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
What doctrines tied to the family were the most significant to you, and why? And I can start. I'll just say a couple that I really like that are the most important to me. I love the family proclamation of the world, so I pretty much like all the doctrine in there. But one that I love to focus on is the divine plan of happiness that's offered for families and enables family relationships to be perpetuated beyond the grave. And that sacred ordinances and covenants are available in holy temples to make it possible for individuals to return to the presence of God and for families to be united eternally. I just love the temple and the doctrines of the temple, that we can be with our families for eternity, and that's why happiness is found when we base our families on the teachings of Jesus Christ. So I just love that doctrine. I think it's beautiful, and I think it kind of overrides everything else because it reminds us why we need to know the doctrine of the family, because there's so much more than just this life. It's all about eternity. So that was one thing that I thought about.
So something you just said really struck me, and then reminded me about, I think it was in Sister Beck's talk. She talked about the theology of family, which is what we're talking about, temples and eternal families. But she said it starts with the, it involves the creation, the fall, and the atonement. The creation, where we have a place to come. The fall, bodies can actually come to the earth, and then the atonement, Christ makes that a way for us to return. And so that's what the theology of the family, I guess, is what she was talking about. And I really like that because it goes right back to the plan that you were just talking about, the plan of happiness. So anyways.
Yeah.
I also like that she said anti-Christ is anti-family.
Mm-hmm.
Profound.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to add something too from kind of like the family proclamation mostly, but just the part where it talked about motherhood and fatherhood and how they're like working together, but then also distinct parts where basically we can just be together with our families forever. And that's kind of like what was said before, that we make and keep covenants that prepares us for our eternal roles as mothers and fathers. That was something that stood out to me.
You know, for me, this last weekend I was in Hawaii, and so I got to be there for the missile warning.
Oh.
And so, well, it was interesting because a lot of people freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had never seen that before. And when you have a text on your phone that you're going to die in the next 15 minutes, essentially, what do you think about? And a lot of these people, you know, texted or they called home, called to the mainland, called to their families. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting because one of the central doctrines of our church is the family. And so it's just historically people in stressful situations go to the family. And so when we're talking about defining the family or the importance of it, you know, I deal with a lot of the youth and they get confused with the equality, you know, peripheral arguments. When we talk about the Sister Becks, I love that as well, is that, you know, this is the three prongs that this doctrine is on. it's the creation. What is it? What was it? It was
the creation, the fall, and the atonement.
the creation, the fall, and the atonement, and the plan of happiness or the plan of salvation being a key figure in that. You know, it really is. The more I got to looking at this, so vitally important that we really understand the theology of why families are so important, because this doctrine can't change. The marriage is a man and a woman, and we can't. We may want to change it. We can't. This is the plan. It was in the pre-earth life, and it's going to carry on through to the back, or till into eternity. So that's what I thought.
Nice.
For sharing that. That's a super cool experience and thoughts on why it matters. And I love what you said about how it can't change. There might be a lot of people that want it to change. The majority of them want change right now, but God's plan, and it's his plan is it was organized long before anyone had opinions, and it's Satan who's trying to change it because he knows how powerful it is, and he knows why it matters, and so that's why he's working so hard to fight against it. So I love what you said about that.
Can I ask a favor? If you're not speaking, let's try muting our the feedback, because I'm getting feedback.
I'll get that.
So, but somebody's got to talk. So what? So we've covered the first question. You want to move on?
Yeah.
Or let's see.
So why it's important that we study the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester as opposed to the end? On that.
Well, my thoughts on that were we have to know what a family is so we know what we're abdicating for. We have to understand that the eternal nature of a family, so we can decide, yes, these are the things that we want to see have happen in our society. That just came to me just now.
I would agree. I considered it like having an anchor. It's a mooring point where all of us can agree that this is what the doctrine is. This is what our prophet. This is what the Lord wants us to know, and then we can build upon that knowledge throughout the semester, because it would be very difficult to get to a conclusion if we all started from different starting points.
Right.
Yeah, that was my idea as well, that we needed to come together as a whole and kind of define what the family was, so that the rest of the time, as we're talking about these community things and how that affects the community, that we could all be on that same page, basically.
Sorry, my computer's being super slow, so it's hard to pull things up. A cool quote from Julie B. Beck said, "They need to understand the threats to the family so they will know what they are fighting against and can prepare. They need to understand clearly the fullness of God's real ordinances and covenants." Family in the first one. How can you fight against something that you understand? When you do understand it, you fight so much harder because you are up for whatever threats.
We lost her, huh?
Looks like it.
Oh, that's too bad.
She'll log back on.
Yeah, she'll log back in. I did like something that Julie Beck said while we're waiting on her. This might be a little off, but she just said, the blessings of eternal families qualify us for the blessings are the qualifying blessings for eternal life. So when we talk about eternal life, we're talking about families. We're not just talking about abstract blessings. The eternal life is the blessings of the family. So.
Exactly. Well, I also think it's interesting because a lot of the times we think we're alone, that the vast majority of people don't view family as the way we do. And I pulled up off the church website, the newsroom, a statement, and basically says the large number of people around the world recognize the crucial role of traditional families has played and must continue to play in the children's lives. The family are to be protected and moral values propagated. Because the issue of same-sex marriage strikes at the very heart of the family and has a potential for great impact upon the welfare of children. The church unequivocally affirms that marriage should remain the lawful union of a man and a woman. When, I find that really interesting because so much, so much of the time we think that we're alone in our feelings about being family, and so, for a long period of time, I believe a lot of the members of the church have been quiet about their stance on how they feel about their family or what the family is. And, and we've let the louder voices of a smaller minority dictate what will be the laws of the land.
I have, I stay quiet a lot of times when there's debate about what the family is. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes it's really hard to speak up because I think what you said, the few, we've allowed the few to become the voice, and sometimes it's an attacking. It's very very frustrating to try to put forth your values when others are so against it and angry about the way you believe.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I'm the same way. It's something that I believe, it's my passion. I love learning about the family, but I don't know how to stand up and talk about it because everyone is almost, the few loud ones are, it's so easy to offend. And so just a couple of weeks ago, we had a lesson on the family proclamation of the world, and I was all excited. The teacher passed it out at the beginning, and I've been studying marriage and family studies for the past few years. And so I have a lot of thoughts about it. And I didn't say one word the entire Sunday school because we couldn't make it past the first paragraph where he said gender is an essential characteristic because experiences and so conflictive. And I just felt like I left it feeling like tool is that he won't let us even read it or talk about it because distract the conversation enough, then the majority will just stay quiet and try not to offend. But it's too bad because there was no talk about what the family means in that discussion. It was only about how offensive the church is towards gays and lesbians, basically. It's really unfortunate. And sorry, my internet died, but what question were we on? I can't hear you.
I think we're on the how well do you think the average young adult understands the doctrine of the family? That's what's up next. And I think that kind of goes along with what everyone has been saying, that like a little bit I feel like the people within the church or the young adult people in the church would probably have a better understanding of what it is. But at the same time, I feel like that was one of the hardest things for me to define during this lesson was like, what is the family and what does it mean to me? And so pretty much just knowing like God's plan and from the family proclamation, that's basically where I've come to know the doctrine of the family. And I even looked up on LDS.org what it says in the Guide to the Scriptures, and the definition for that said, as used in the Scriptures, a family consists of a husband and wife, children, and sometimes other relatives living in the same house or under one family head. A family can also be a single parent with a child, a husband and a wife without children, or even a single person living alone. I thought that was a good definition of what the family really is.
Yeah, thanks for looking that up. That's awesome.
Where did you say you got that, Hannah? Where did you say you got that?
It's from the Guide to the Scriptures on LDS.org.
Got it.
I think, I want to generalize a little bit on the youth of the church. I think the world, Satan has done a great job of confusing the issue of what family is over a long period of time because as we know, as we can see and that we study, that the dynamics for the world that has for families has changed and is changing. And so, yes, I think it's very, I think they have a misunderstanding, and not that we haven't taught them the gospel fully or correctly, but I think we have assumed that we've done a great job. And I think there's many gaps that are missing when we teach this because they're, like you were saying, when you talk about gender isn't family, but we get wrapped up in gender and what, in that issue. And that's and if we break it down even further, that's a morality issue. And so if we look at it in that context, then it makes more sense to people. It's not that we, then you can get away from, well, you're repressive, you're not open-minded, you're all those silly things. And so, one of the great things I learned from I'm going to date myself, Elder Faust, many years ago, was that all these concerns come back to one central point of doctrine. As soon as you can understand that, then you can get at the heart of the issue. And so having the youth understand this is, we need to do a better job of understanding it ourselves. And I think the new program that the church has put out for the Relief Society and the priesthood is going to have to make us more scriptorians and better teachers, because we'll have to understand that doctrine ourselves better. I'm sorry, ladies, I'm so long-winded.
No, that was awesome. That was right.
That's perfect. If we understand the doctrine, then it's not hard to understand why we're the gender we are. It's not hard to understand why a father does one thing and a mother does another thing. It's not hard to understand that if we understand doctrine.
And that's a good reminder for the discussions that we have with people. Like, that's, if we're going to try to be better advocates and open our mouths more, don't fight the issues, because clearly if people have those issues, then there's a misunderstanding of the doctrine. There's a missing link there. And so we need to focus on what that doctrine is. And so it goes back to our first question about what doctrines matter and what the doctrine is, and why do we need to know about it before discussing anything else, because nothing else really matters unless we know the doctrine. We can move on to the next question. what doctrine or what principle, if understood, would motivate a Latter-day Saint to advocate for the family? Just one thing from the proclamation: we call upon responsible citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as a fundamental unit of society. And then he also said, further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. Those statements from the proclamation are pretty strong calls to action. And understanding just what it will do to society and to our families is a pretty motivating reason to want to fight for it, rather than just, in one of the parts of the lesson, she said, a lot of people just say, okay, well, it's not affecting my family, so I'm okay, but we have to really take that seriously and know that it is affecting our families and our country and society. So that's why advocating for it.
One thing I thought when I was thinking about that question about doctrine was, if we understand the doctrine of, where we came from, the premortal existence, that we're sons and daughters of our Heavenly Father, we understand those like very basic things that we teach, it helps us to understand a lot more about the rest of the plan and the family. Just understanding that particular piece.
I like that. And kind of going along with that, I think basically one of the main parts of that plan is like how Heavenly Father loves us. And so he wants us back, and we already know the plan, but other people don't know that plan. And so we can share with them that love that he has for them, or let them know that he loves them as well. And I think that can help other families to be able to receive the blessings that we have already in the church as well.
I loved the quote by Elder Bednar that she shared on the same page as the questions. It came from his video, but it goes back to what Mike and what all of you have been saying about how we need to understand the doctrine. The eternal importance of gender and of eternal marriage can be properly understood only within the context of our Heavenly Father's plan of happiness. Emphasizing the institution of marriage without linking it adequately to the simple and fundamental doctrine of the plan cannot provide sufficient direction, protection, and hope in a world confused about these vital issues. So until we understand the doctrine of the plan of salvation, it fits together and makes sense. So that's where it all comes down to.
I agree. I was just trying to look up there. I love a quote from President Boyd K. Packer, who let me see, basically stated that true doctrine understood changes behavior faster than the study of behavior, roughly. And so, when we talk about, like, what was it, a couple months ago or last month, there was the talking about testimony and conversion. And a lot of the members have a testimony of the gospel. But conversion to the gospel is action. So putting that testimony into action. So how do we get to the action part, or advocating? And it's that growth of, understanding the gospel to really defining a point of understanding, so that we can, feel comfortable, and then also being led by the Spirit to answer those questions, even to those who are very upset and are challenging, that the Lord will be there with you and help us to communicate with them, so that they can at least feel that we're just as passionate, but not as confrontational.
Yeah, it's hard to do with the confrontation thing. It is hard these days. And it seems like everybody's super offended super easily, so if my opinion is different from your opinion, then you're going to be offended, and the world is, a horrible place. And so we have to, I think, staying away from contention as much as we can when we try to talk about the things that we know to be true. Or it's hard, but it's so important.
And that, I think that's the key, is that for us, we can't get offended by it, right? Because that's the difficult thing. When I served a mission, that was the hard thing, because they were rejecting me. Well, not really, because you're just the messenger of the message of God, right? And so they're really rejecting God. And so as soon as a missionary overcomes that, then they're good to go. As long as we're, not being offended, then it is, really our duty to just say, I don't agree with that, and you can move on. It's just, we don't have to enter into a debate. What I loved in the reading was we have the high ground. We know the truth. We have the words of the prophet. So we don't get into the minutia of this argument, because that's where the sophistry is. If we just stay to what we know to be true, we'll be fine. And it's not offensive. But we know that the wicked are going to take the truth to be hard anyways. And so as long as we're not being malicious, it's going to be all right. That's my thought.
Carrie, welcome. Glad you made it.
Hi. Sorry about that, you guys.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We were just talking. We were finishing up on.
What? I can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We were just finishing up the last question before the defining the family question. Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add to any of the questions?
Yeah, I wrote some. What was the question again? Make sure I've got the right one that you guys are talking about.
Right now we're on what doctrine or what principle, if understood, would motivate a Latter-day Saint to advocate for the family?
Oh, okay. I think I just kind of wrote down, for me, or to help someone, I put on how much raising a family affects society as a whole. It doesn't just affect their little family, it actually affects the whole community and then beyond. And I think as Latter-day Saint, that should be important to them. They just know the importance of a mother and a father, and that it's really the only point of, like, I think that talked about in Sister Beck's talk, where that was the whole purpose of Earth. I think that was Sister Beck's talk, was, to form a family and to be here as a family. So, and that's what brings true happiness. I don't know if you guys already talked about all this, or if I'm just repeating.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Well, and also just how much it affects future generations. I just watched some of my family members make certain decisions, and now, and it just goes on to their children, and it's going to continue on in that pathway that they take. And it just doesn't, their one little decision has such a huge impact on an entire generation. So those were my thoughts.
Yeah, I like what you said about how it affects it's a lot bigger picture than people give it credit for, I guess. Like, it's not just you, it's not just your choices, it's society, and it's your family, and it's future generations. And so big responsibility as a parent, and it's a big reason to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and why we're defending the family. Is the doctrine teaches the best way, because that's God's plan, and his plan is the best way. And so we can trust in that and rely on that.
Yeah, it's a big fight, but boy, is it one worth fighting for. I've been to here in Utah, I went to the big family convention that they had here where all the different religions come, and there's a lot of people out there to fight for it. It's pretty neat, but yeah, it's going to be a big struggle to fight.
Well, thanks for your thoughts and thanks for joining. Do you guys want to work on figuring out our list of defining the family and then?
I have one closing thought though.
Oh, yeah.
On that subject is that we need to remember it's already determined that we're already on the winning side. So a lot of the times we think it's an uphill battle, but we already know the outcome. We just have to choose the side that we're going to be on and what role we're going to play.
I think that what goes along with that too, that's a really good point, is we know, yeah, we definitely know the end battle, but it's like, it's hard to watch certain people be lost to the other side. And that's why we have to keep fighting. Because like I said, I have family members that are on the other side, unfortunately. And it's hard to see them lose, you know, or not to lose, but to struggle. They don't see their struggle, but they're struggling and they just haven't figured out why. We know why, but.
Well, thanks everyone. Does anyone else have any other thoughts? Okay. What did you guys, your number one definition of the family out of the 7 options?
Number 2 for me.
Yeah, that was the same. Number 2 was 1.
Was that the 2 or more people who share goals and values?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, me too. I switched it around so I don't have the order anymore, but yeah, I like that one.
These were hard though.
As well.
Yeah. So especially like the ancestry and lineage, I was like, oh, I don't know.
What?
Could go either way. For the second one, I put the group and society consisting of 1 or 2 parents and their children, because that just seemed like one step down from the first one.
I did that one too for number 2.
Okay.
Yep.
For number 3, I put all members under one roof.
Me too.
Pretty much the same.
Good. Okay, this is where I didn't know. I just kept one and then lineage. Did you guys have any thoughts about which one would be first or second? I don't know a ton about the difference between the 2 words, I guess.
Was that the ancestry and lineage one?
Yeah, so there was a group of persons sharing common ancestry and then lineage, especially distinguished lineage. It would be like the House of Israel type of thing.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah. So that goes like for everybody, you know, like a bigger group and further back.
Yeah.
Maybe. I had that one as my number 5.
The lineage?
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you put ancestry after that?
Yes.
Okay.
What did you have as the number 4?
I put number 7. I don't know if that.
Which one was that?
A group of individuals derived from a common stock, the family of human beings. And then I put 6 as my last one.
Was that like a group of things, like a class?
That's what I did.
Good, because I thought I was totally.
Yeah, those last ones I had a hard time figuring out which one I wanted where, but they're basically pretty close in mine.
Okay. Okay, is everyone good with those in that order? Anyone have any thoughts?
Looks good to me.
Okay. So we need to have one of us post what was challenging about the activity, our consensus about how well we think the average young adult understands the doctrine, why it's important that we study the doctrine at the beginning of the semester, what doctrine will motivate a Latter-day Saint to advocate for the family, and then definitions of the family. I can just take care of that this week. I'll answer those questions based on what we talked about.
So maybe I'm confused, but it says here that we are supposed to have one or all of us, basically do like a final wrap up that she will look at.
In this discussion.
Definition that we came up with of the family that she will look at. And then your final group answer on defining family. Do we have to answer all of these questions again, or do we just say what our group came up defining the family? I might be wrong.
No, I was confused about it too. So what do you guys think?
I think it was just supposed to be a summary of just what the discussion was about, because she said in her note that she was just going to look at the quick summary and then go back and look at the video later.
So we like type up and summarize what we talked about, basically.
Yeah, but I think at the end of this video, here at the end of this, we need to summarize what our definition of a family would be.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Summary.
So what could we say our definition as a group, as we've talked, is our definition of family? That's hard.
I would say start with what we put for number 2.
Yes, I don't agree with number 2, because you're stating that the family structure is a cohabitational family. Is you're putting that above a married family? Is that what I'm understanding? This 2 parents and a child, or what? Or did they?
Well, that's kind of the way I read number 2, was that it's people who have long-term commitments, but it doesn't really say marriage, so that could be long-term, like homosexual.
But neither of them really say marriage.
Right, exactly.
So I mean, are we taking into account cohabitation, that just any of that? So we're saying just because there's 2 people in a committed relationship, that supersedes.
So I don't know that our definition has to have any of these 7 things in it. I think we could, as a group, define what we feel a family is.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Am I?
Yeah.
I might be off in left field, so if I am.
I guess that's what's challenging about this activity. That answers that. No, I think you're right. So I say we come up with, based off of what all of her definitions, and then we can add to it what we believe and know from the doctrine of the family, that 2 or more people, well, it doesn't even have to be 2 people, because the definition that Hannah read said that it could be a single person, because not everyone has that opportunity to have a family in the traditional way. But somewhere in there has to be covenants, and if there's children, then marriage, and those are a couple of my thoughts, but it is tricky to come up with a definition. I say we just steal Hannah's from LDS.org. That's great.
That's fine.
That works for me.
What was Hannah's
Oh, I can read it again. Okay, so it's from A Guide to the Scriptures, and it says, as used in the Scriptures, a family consists of a husband and wife and children, and sometimes other relatives living in the same house or under one family head. A family can also be a single parent with children, a husband and wife without children, or even a single person living alone. So
That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. I like that definition a lot. I wouldn't really want to change anything about that. So
I agree.
I like it too.
okay. So anything that we need to summarize, or like, do we need to summarize the other questions really quick, or I don't know. I don't know exactly what she's looking for at this point.
I think just the one person summarizes everything, puts it all in, right?
Yeah.
And then you
It
add.
does say here, have one group member post your final group answer on defining family discussion board for the definition of the family. So we just stated that, and then one person, it looks like, needs to type that too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I could even just copy and paste it.
Perfect.
Okay. And
so
then
Hannah, you'll take care of that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Because somewhere it said one person posts what was challenging about this activity, and then it goes through questions. So, or do we just post the and the definition and call that good?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good.
So next week, does this time work for everybody again next week?
It'll work for me.
So I actually need to go like an hour later. So I work at the temple until like 12 on Wednesdays, but they're closed this week. So next week I won't be able to get to internet until like 12:30 my time, so that'll be 1:30 Mountain Time.
Okay.
That works for me. Today was just a bad day, so sorry.
So 1:30 Mountain Time next week. That works for me.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
Who wants to set it up next week?
I don't actually know how, but like I could probably, I don't know.
That's my issue too. I'm learning. I can do it. I can try and figure it out.
I can just
Karen?
post it again. Or
No, I've done it before with the Google Hangouts. I've just never done it with the HOA unless it's the same type thing. So I've got it set up. So I'll do next week.
Awesome.
Well, if you want to do the definition of family, I'll post the recording, and then we'll be good.
Great. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.